everyone, it's your boy Luke here for our core picks at this week's Players Championship. It's my favorite week of the year, the first golf tournament I ever went to back in the day, why I fell in love with golf to begin with, and overall it's the best field in golf, the biggest purse in the entire world of golf, and what the players are really gearing up for this time of year. In this video, we're going to be covering my core plays for this week, my top play in each price range, and I'll be building a majority of my lineups behind. Last week at the API was a lot of fun. You could see the Bay Hill shirt. I was there on Sunday because we had ourselves quite a sweat. We had 79 of 150 lineups get 6 of 6, by far the highest I've ever had. Our single entry ended up being absolute fire. I'll show you guys the lineup up on the screen. Ended up bringing home quite a takedown in both of our single entries there. So my main lineup, what I entered across all of the contests that I entered in. If we have that type of week with our main lineup, going to be pretty solid. And that was despite not having the elite guy up top like a Scotty Scheffler or Victor Hovland. And I can't even imagine the type of week it would have been if we had made that type of swap. Either way, I digress. We're looking on to the players now, a tournament that I'm going to be at for all 4 days. So not only will I be there for the tournament play, I'll also be there on Wednesday for the practice round. So look forward to a little bit of extra content later in the week, covering what I see at the practice round, what to expect in terms of the conditions, and of course throughout the weekend as well. But moving on to this week, let's go ahead and hop right on into the picks here for this week's players. Alright, to kick this thing off, let's first start off with a review of the key stats for this week. If you haven't already seen the course breakdown, this is a very much a point-to-point golf course, a course where you have to be precise off the tee and into greens. And we're also expecting quite a bit of rain on Thursday and Friday. As a result, this golf course is going to play a little bit longer than usual. And also on Saturday and Sunday, we're expecting temperatures in the 40s and 50s, so could see even more of an effect on that distance. So distance off the tee is going to be a factor this week, but also keeping the ball in the fairway and taking advantage of perhaps that lift clean in place that we see for Thursday and Friday. Also taking a look at Pete Dye golf courses. There's always guys that do good at his venues. Also have shots game putting on Bermuda grass. The one thing I will say is these aren't pure Bermuda grass surfaces. They are a mixture of Bermuda, bent, and POA, which makes them unique. It's what we see at Innisbrook, Country Club of Austin, a few other venues like what we saw at the Amex over there at the stadium course. All of those have this unique green type. Also, shots gained around the green on Bermuda grass, par 5 scoring, 3-putt avoidance, and of course shots gained here down in the Florida swing as well. Another correlating set of courses that I'm looking at. Let's go ahead and hop right into the picks. First off with our spend up option, which is going to be Collin Morikawa here at $10,700. He's kind of the forgotten man up top, especially when it comes to the modeling. A lot of his recent form isn't captured because the European Tour stats don't have the shots gained metrics behind them. Also, they kind of get lost because he hasn't really been himself. Whether we take a look at the last 50 measured rounds or even the last 24 measured rounds, it doesn't really get all that good with the approach play, just gaining over a quarter of a stroke per round. Now, for any other player in the field, that would be an excellent metric, something that I would be pointing out as a positive. And for Collin Morikawa, he's typically much closer to a Jon Rahm or especially Victor Hovland or Justin Thomas. I mean, in fact, I think most people would consider Collin Morikawa the best iron player in the world. So, in fact, this number has been a huge disappointment over these last few months. The off the tee play has still remained a constant. He's extremely accurate. Among the guys that hit it over 310 yards, he's among the most accurate in the world. He's also been a slightly positive putter, which for Collin Morikawa isn't something that we're used to seeing. If we go over here to the last 24 measured rounds, the disappointing stats on approach remain the case, only gaining just over a quarter of a stroke per round. The off the tee play is still pretty solid. The around the green play is there. And the putter, though, gets significantly better. He gains close to a third of a stroke per round. And if Collin Morikawa is gaining with the putter, of course, he's always going to be that constant gainer off the tee. And he flips back to his normal self with the irons. This guy's going to run away and win a bunch of golf tournaments. It's really that putter that had been lagging behind for all that time. The fact that he's losing with the approach play is strange to say the least. We did see that at the Genesis Invitational. He carried himself with the short game, which is something that we don't typically see from Collin. So if he can flip back to his usual self with that ball striking, I like a lot of that upside, especially because the last time he went out there, it was a second place at the Genesis. Next up, we're going to have Patrick Cantlay, who's kind of a Pete Dye specialist. If you just sort this field by shots gained at Pete Dye's designs, you're going to see somebody that is top 5 in the field no matter which way you slice it up. If you're taking a look at shots gained ball striking, he's an absolute phenom at these venues. Shots gained putting, he tends to read the greens here that Pete Dye creates so well. And getting up and down, he's also a master at taking on some of the more difficult, more creative shots you have to tackle on the PGA Tour. Let's go ahead and take a look at the metrics, which for Patrick Cantlay are always going to be among the best on tour. He's gaining across all 4 statistical categories, which is really what he does. He's one of the few guys up top. In fact, the only one other than Xander Schauffele that's gaining across all 4 major categories. He's also a significant gainer off the tee, where he's gaining nearly 2/3 of his stroke per round. He's gaining a third of his stroke per round on approach, over a third of his stroke per round around the green, and 2/3 of his stroke per round putting. All of that good for over 2 strokes gained per round total. That is by far the best in the field. That's more than Jon Rahm at this point with some of his recent performances, and really clears everyone else in the field by a substantial amount. Fact of the matter is, the more and more of a sample size that we give him, the better that he looks. Of late, he's actually been slightly disappointing. A little bit lower off the tee, a little bit lower on approach, a little bit lower across the board. So even though he's put up some good performances, again, at Kapalua looked extremely sharp. If you take a look at the recent form here as well, while he hasn't put up those signature wins or anything like that, there's been multiple top 5s of late. So despite how good these finishes have been of late, he's been better over the last 50 measured rounds. So you could argue that he's due for some regression on a golf course, a Pete Dye design that he's always tended to do well at in the past. His price is kind of sandwiched between 2 of I expect to be the highest owned players on the slate, that being Victor Hovland and down here Xander Schauffele, $200 below Patrick Cantlay. I expect both of them to get 25 to 30% ownership this week, and perhaps deservingly so. But at the same time, if we take a look at just the pure shots gained numbers at this venue, he clears both of them by wide margins. So he will be the person up top I'm taking, particularly if he comes in with middling ownership. In my opinion, he's the guy who should be chalk in this range. Same thing with a Colin Morikawa up top. And I'm expecting both of them to come in right around 14 or 15% ownership later this week at the very most. Let's go ahead and move down to our bread and butter play, which is going to be Daniel Berger at $8,800. He's somebody who, despite finishing 4th at the Honda Classic, people are looking at it like he blew a lead. It was the worst thing in human history, blah, 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 blah. He gained over 2.5 strokes in every shots gained category last time out. He's also somebody who, for the last 50 measured rounds on the PGA Tour, has been one of the best players in the world. He's somebody who's gaining in every category but with the putting, which he really is not that good on POA, he's not that good on bent grass, but when we get him down here in Florida on Bermuda grass, that's when he tends to do his best work. And down there at the Honda Classic, he was able to get the job done there for sure. He's gaining over a stroke per round on approach, and this is over his last 50 measured rounds. This is a massive sample size, so it's far from an aberration at this point. Still gaining off the tee, gaining on approach. If we go to the last 24 measured rounds, it's going to look just as good. So he's over here at $8,800, gaining 3/4 of a stroke per round on approach, gaining around the green, gaining off the tee. The putter, still a negative, but that's always the X factor for Daniel Berger, right? If he goes out there and he loses a few strokes with the putting, he's still very live to make the cut, finish in the top 25. But what he gains with that putter, which he does a lot more often down here in Florida. I mean, take a look at his shots gained putting Bermuda numbers. He's a gainer for his career. That's when he goes out there and he's capable of winning events. In the DFS, where we're looking for guys that not only have a relatively high floor, but of course that ceiling in them when they go out there and have a really good week, that is exactly what he brings to the table. Next up, we have Billy Horschel. He's going to be our quote-unquote value play of the week. A little bit more expensive than I like going to for a value pick, but I just like to play far too much not to include it here in my core plays. He's $8,100. The recent form has been immaculate. I mean, almost ended up taking home that tournament last week at the API. I had an outright bet on him. He was in my main lineup, as you guys saw. I had a lot of exposure to him elsewhere, whether it was prize picks, all that, and just ended up coming short, but still paid off in a lot of those formats. I love the course fit, the fact that he's extremely precise off the tee. He's also gone a lot longer over the last 3 or 4 months, as we've well established here on the channel. I think it's why he's starting to ascend to the next level. The recent form is great. He looked really solid during Sunday. He got really unlucky with a few shots, most notably that wedge on hole number 6 where he got gusted, ended up hitting it into the water. I saw that in person. It gusted like no other. It was like a 30-mile-an-hour gust. He got completely screwed there. If that wouldn't have happened, he easily wins that golf tournament. He had a few misses from like 5 feet, or if he doesn't miss that, he wins the golf tournament. He also got gusted on hole number 10, but I guess everyone was dealing with that. So I digress. Good for Scotty Scheffler, but either way, I like going to him. He's mispriced. Of course, it's not factoring in his Saturday and Sunday performance here in terms of his price tag because pricing for this event came out so early. Take a look at the recent form. I mean, he's been on absolute fire. A second, a 16th, and a 6th place finish. The course history here, it's been a slightly underwhelming, I would say, right? He's made some cuts, but he hasn't posted that splash performance, and I'm sure that's killing Billy Horschel. This is the golf course that he practices at every single day. When he's not playing on the PGA Tour, he is at this course grinding. He plays rounds here every single time he's going out here and practicing. And I mean, you've heard it from the PGA Tour live people all the time because this is also their home course. They're stationed down there in Ponte Vedra Beach. He's practices more than literally anyone else. So of course you get to do that for free because it's a TPC network golf course. But Billy Horschel, he really wants to win here. He's been very adamant about that. I thought he was going to come through and get us that win last week. I'm going right back to it. I have an outright bet on him. He's going to get a win soon. This guy is just too talented of a player not to go out there and get a win. I know he's a head case, but he's also a damn talented head case. So will be somebody that I'm going to here. If you take a look at the shots gained metrics, let's go ahead and look at why he's such a great play. The off the tee numbers are starting to look like among the elite in the world, not just the elite for this field. Of course, if you're elite in this field, you're going to be elite in the world because these are the very best in the world. He's been an elite putter, gaining nearly 0.8 of a stroke per round in that category. Look at that, 3 sevens. Might be his week there. We're seeing some good signs and whatnot. Around the green, he's been a gainer. The approach play starting to get back towards a positive. He was a gainer at the Honda Classic. He was also a gainer last week at the API, so you like to see that. And if you take a look at the last 50 measured rounds, this isn't a fluke, right? He's still gaining off the tee, albeit a little bit lower. The approach play is still a slight negative, so that is something that he can be a little bit inconsistent with, but still huge gainers in those short game categories. And like I said, it's really the approach play when it comes down to a Billy Horschel. When he gains 4 or 5 strokes on approach, like he used to do all the time. I mean, early in his career, this guy was an absolute machine with that approach play, and now it's everything else that's really carrying him. If he can tune back into that type of play, this guy is going to be somebody to watch out for quite some time. Let's go ahead and move on to our value pick here, which is going to be Taylor Gooch at $7,200. There's probably no easier of a play on the slate. This is a complete no-brainer at $7,200. I like the recent form. I like the course fit here. I like the course history here as well. Go ahead and take a look at it. He was in contention last year. When I was watching this in person, Taylor Gooch was somebody we knew about, but really wasn't a household name yet, right? He had miscut his first time here, but finished 5th place last year. The recent form is, of course, immaculate. Ended up being in contention for most of that golf tournament, kind of throwing it away towards the end, which is unfortunate for Taylor Gooch, but still finished 7th. He had the miscut at the Genesis, but a 28th at the Waste Management Open. Of course, won the RSM Classic in the fall. And if we take a look at the recent form metrics, the guy's been just on another level, right? He's ascended to a different point with his game. He's no longer just an average player here on the tour. He's gaining off the tee, gaining significantly on approach. Around the green is something that he's able to tune into. One of the best grinders out there. And the putter, even though it is a little bit inconsistent, he pops. And usually it's on Bermuda grass. And I know these aren't true Bermuda grass surfaces, but he does gain in that category. You can see 0.1 shots gained. The ball striking is great. He's severely mispriced because he's not taken into account at all what happened there on the weekend at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And I know he's going to be chalked this week, but the course history is there. The recent form is there. It's a misprice. I don't think we need to overthink it. All right, and now lastly, our diamond in the rough, which is going to be Aaron Wise at $6,600. We took him last week. We put all of our faith into him, even after a bunch of missed cuts in a row, and he finished in the top 20. He looked really good on the weekend, and that really wasn't a surprise, especially given the conditions. He's somebody who, with his ball striking prowess, with his ability to flight his shots, when things get dicey, he's going to be somebody that separates himself. We saw it at the Honda Classic. We've seen it time and time again down here in Florida, so not a surprise to see him in the player pool. Of course, if he would have taken in his finish at the API into consideration, he'd be a little bit more expensive on the slate, so you're getting a little bit of inherent salary flexibility with Aaron Wise. Of course, the off the tee play and the approach play is exactly what we're looking for. He's a prolific gainer in both those categories, but most of all, he was third in the field last week in shots gained tee to green and gained over 8 shots to the field. He was only behind Jon Rahm and eventual winner Scottie Scheffler in that category. And if we take a look at the last 24 measured rounds, which actually have a few bad performances in there, he still looks solid, right? Gaining off the tee, gaining on approach. Around the green, he's actually a little bit better than that historically, and the putter has came back down to earth. But if we zoom out a little bit, you're going to see exactly why there's so much buzz behind Aaron Wise and why I'm so bullish on him this year. I mean, I've talked about him in seemingly every other video on this channel. I mean, the guy's somebody I just love talking about because this shots gained profile is exactly what I'm looking for. Like I said, gaining off the tee and on approach, the around the green play gets back to what I was talking about. He's usually pretty good in that category. The putter still right around a negative, but he pops from time to time. He'll go out there and he'll gain 2 to 3 strokes on approach, from putting from time to time. And when he does that, he's borderline going to take down a golf tournament. You started to see that happening a lot more often towards the fall. It's continued into 2022 a little bit. He got onto a little bit of a bad stretch with the putter. So let's go ahead and take a look at the recent form. You can really go ahead and see that stretch of golf. So it's really evident. I mean, first 17th last week, he still lost a ton of strokes with the putter. He lost at the Honda Classic. He also lost at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Also lost significantly with the putter at the Genesis Invitational. But despite all that, hardly missed the cut at the Honda Classic. Ended up making the cut at the Genesis Invitational. And at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, missed the cut by 2 strokes. So overall, he's somebody who the game has still been sharp despite not having the best of finishes of late. He's at a solid price tag of $6,600. I think he's a safe bet this week to make the cut, especially considering how long this golf course is going to play. Again, he's somebody who, when things get dicey, a little bit more difficult, his game seems to outshine a lot of the others. I also think he comes in relatively low owned. So going to be one of my favorite GPP plays down low on the slate. That is all I've got for this week's core picks. Before you go on and get out of here, make sure you let me know down in the comments what your favorite play on the board is, who you think is going to win this week. If I had to pick a winner, it's going to be Colin Morikawa. I think if he continues to putt the lights out like he has, gets back to that approach play like we're used to seeing, he is a clear winner in this field. I expect him to win by 1 or 2 strokes, and if things get even more difficult over the weekend, it gets cold, this thing plays a little bit longer, he's somebody who's extremely accurate with those long irons. So he'll be my pick to win, but go ahead and let me know who you guys have got down below. Also, look forward to all of the content dropping here on the channel. We're going to have value picks, fades and sleepers, DFS live stream on Wednesday, all that sort of fun stuff coming for you guys as per usual here on the channel. And I'll be at the course on Wednesday for the practice round to give you guys an idea of the exact conditions to expect. We'll go over rough length, green speeds, everything you need to know. Make sure to put any questions you have for me, anything you want me to touch on down in the chat as well, and I'll make sure to go ahead and show you guys that, whether it's during the live stream or just a video itself there on Wednesday. A lot to look forward to this week. I'm really looking forward to being at this event for the entire weekend. Good luck with all of your DFS lineups for this week. Hopefully we can cash with our main lineup once again. And we'll be max entering some of the larger GPPs this week as well. So maybe we'll take home one of those GPP wins as well. So good luck, guys. Let's get this cash this week. I'll see you guys next time.